Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Tez Vav Amud Beis, the second line from the top. The Gemara brought the Mishnah in Tamid that the korban Tamid is a korban oila, and therefore the typical sprinkling of the blood of the korban oila is on two opposite corners. The first corner being the northeastern corner, which is done. It's really one application, which is two, because it's done on the corner, and then it hits both sides of the Mizbeach, the north and the east. Then he walks around to the southwest, and he does the same thing. That's the typical korban oila, and that's what's performed by the korban tamid as well, according to the Tanna Kama. However, Rabbi Shimon, he himself argues, and Rabbi Shimon HaMitzvah says that indeed we make it so that the first part of the korban tamid is like the korban oila. That means that the northeastern corner is indeed sprinkled, where it hits both the north and the south at the same time. One application, which is two. However, when he encircles the mizbeach, he then applies the dam like a korban chatos. He puts the dam first on the west side of the wall of the Mizbeach, and then on the south side of the wall of Mizbeach. The Gemara now asks, Maishno, the Yoiv Oila Bereisha, Vahoda Yoiv Chatos. Why do you put the Oila application first and then the Chatos? Hare, normally when you have both the Chatos and the Oila, you put the Chatos before the Oila, and here he's applying the dam of the Oila for the Korban Tamid, like a korban oila, and then he's going and applying the korban chatos. Why in that order? Answers the Gemara. The Gemara is asking its question again. My shno the yoiv oila bereish v'hoda yoiv chatos. Neisiv bereish the chatos v'hoda neisiv the oila. Do it in the opposite order, the chatos and then the oila. Answers the Gemara. Kiven the ol oila he. Since indeed it's a korban tamid, which is a korban oila, therefore he kadma bereisha. It takes precedence, whereby the application is first with a korban oila. Why is it different that we apply the northeastern and then the southwestern corners of the Mizbeach? Why not then apply the opposite corners? That means make the southeast application and then the northwest. Why are we doing the northeast and then the southwest? Amrei, the Gemara says, because oila tu'una yisoid, the keren dromis mizrachis loihava le yisoid. The mizbeach has on the north and the western parts the yisoid, which is an amma of a height on the bottom of the mizbeach, and also an amma wide, and it goes from the north all the way on the northern and the western parts of the Mizbeach, and also wraps around a little bit to the east and the southern sides as well. So therefore, if we want to then make an application, as the Gemara is suggesting, to be at the southeastern side, there's no Yisoid. Ask the Gemara, Maishna diyai bereisha mizrachi tzefoinis, why do it in the order where you first make the application on the northeastern corner of the Mizbeach and then the southwestern? Why not the opposite? First apply the dam on the southwestern corner of the Mizbeach and then the northeastern corner of the Mizbeach. The Gemara explains, when the Mizbeach, since the ramp went and is coming from the south, that means that he's facing north from the south side. So therefore, kiven da omar mar kol pino shata poine lo ya'ela derech yamin. Since we learn out when it comes to the avoida that every way that a person, that the kohen is turning, should be to the right. Therefore, the mizrach bereisha bahu poga. Therefore, it's really to the right would be to the east, since he's first starting to look at the mizbeach from the south side and he's looking towards the north. So the right of him would be then to the east. So therefore, the first corner he hits is the northeastern corner, and then, which has the Yesod, and then as he walks around, each time that he's facing the Mizbeach, to each direction that he's then turning to, it would be to the right. And he's walking then counterclockwise till he gets to the southwestern corner and makes the second application. Ask the Gemara, "Maide ba'oilo hu de ka'omar rachmono ovid ba maisechatos." Ask the Gemara, why is it the oilo that he's then doing a maisechatos? We said over here he does the first application as a korban oilo, and then the second one he applies as a korban chatos. The Gemara wants to know, why doesn't he do the opposite? Meaning, when it comes to a korban chatos, he should then make an application like an oilo. V'dilma bechatos hu de ka'omar rachmona. Maybe the Torah is talking about the korban chatos when it talks about the monthly seer izim, and therefore in that korban chatos avid bo maisa oilo. Then you should make an application as an korban oilo when you make the chatos. Why are we doing it over here and saying when it comes to the korban oilo, which is really korban tamid, we'll also make an application like a chatos? Gemara is asking, make the korban chatos, and during the korban chatos, then apply it one of the applications like a korban oilo. The Gemara says, "Lo yisaykel daitoch." It shouldn't even come up on your mind to think that. Why? The Chsiv says in the pasuk, "Al oilas hatomi yasav v'niskoy." It says, in addition to the oila offering, in other words, in addition to the oila offering, we're going to then bring the chatos, the higot of the chatos during the musaf offering. My ka'omar rachmon. What's the Torah saying? Midi the chatos shodi oila. It means that when you're going to then perform the oila, then you'll also have the chatos application on the oila. Now the Gemara turns its attention and focuses really on a Mishnah in Tamid, and is going to bring a contradiction from a Mishnah, similar Mishnah from Maseches Midos. Says the Gemara, Tnan Hasam, it says over there in the Mishnah in Tamid, in regards to the early morning when bringing the korban Tamid, Omar Lehem Amamuna, the Sigan HaKayanim, who's in charge, he calls out Tzu'u to the other Kohanim who have been zoiche, privileged to do to be partaking in the korban Tamid Shel Shachar. Tzu'u, go out, veheviu tle melishkas beis hatloim. Go out and bring a tle, a lamb, from the chamber called the beis hatloim. They would keep lambs there, at least 6 of them that have already been breed-checked without any mums, so they're ready to be brought as a korban tamid. V'haloi lishkas hatloim haisa b'miksoya svonis marovis. And the Mishnah points out that this lishkas hatloim, this chamber of tloim, was situated in the northwestern corner of the Beis HaMoikad. Beis HaMoikad was really on the northern part of the Azara. It was built into the wall of the Azara, and it had 4 different corners. One of the corners was the northwestern corner, and that northwestern corner was where this Beis HaTloim was located, according to this Mishnah in Tamid. The Mishnah in Tamid continues and says, "Va'arba lishkois hayisham." There were 4 lishkois, again, since it was one Beis HaMoikad, and it was then on every corner, it had a small chamber, small room that would open up to the bigger Beis HaMoikad. Achas lishkas hatloim, one like we just mentioned was the lishkas hatloim, which the Mishnah stated over here as being in the northwestern corner. The achas lishkas hachoisamos, one corner was a chamber for the choisamos. Those were the choisamos that were given to those who would purchase a korban. He would also need other things like the wine and the flour and different oils to partake in the korban. So he'd have to then give a certain amount of money. Then he would get a choisem, a certain type of receipt that he would then be able to give to the kohen later on and get the required things that go together with his korban. Va'achas lishkas beis hamoikid, and one of the lishkas was actually called beis hamoikid. It was a small beis hamoikid in the larger beis hamoikid. The large beis hamoikid had meduros, had large bonfires to keep the kohanim warm, and in this greater beis hamoikid had one of the corner lishkas as called a small Beis HaMoiked. They also had a small bonfire. That's also where the Kohanim would not only keep warm, but it was also where they kept the things, the wood and things that they would use for the bonfire, the greater Beis HaMoiked. One of the lishkas, one of the rooms, was where they would make the lechem haponim. Now ask the Gemara a stira from Maseches Midos. V'raminu arba lishkas hayu lebeis hamoiked. There were 4 different chambers on the corners of the greater Beis HaMoiked. Again, Beis HaMoiked was where they have these big meduros, the bonfires that would keep the Kohanim warm. Kikitniois hapsuchos letraktin, that were described as little rooms. These 4 corners were little rooms that were open up to a bigger, like a king's palace. Like they have rooms in the corners that were for bedrooms, and then it would open up to the palace itself. Shtayim bekodesh v'shtayim bechoil. Since it was built into the northern wall of the Azara, so 2 of them, which hit the corners that were outside of the Azara, were chol, whereas 2 of them that were inside of the Azara were kodesh. Umehai mishamshois, asked the Mishnah and Midos, what were these lishkos used for? Maravis droimis hi haisa lishkas tle korban. That means that the southwestern corner was the lishka for the tle, for the tloim. We're on top of Tez Zayin Amud Aleph. Droimis mizrachis hi lishka shahayu oisim bo lechem haponim. The southeastern corner was used for the making of the lechem haponim. Mizrachi tzvoinis baginzu beis chashmonoi avnei mizbech sheshikutzom malchei Yavan. When malchei Yavan they came and defiled the Beis Hamikdash in Bayis Sheni. So when the Chashmonoim came and they saw that the Yevonim used the Mizbeach for their Avodah Zarah, so they destroyed that Mizbeach. They took those stones and they hid it into this Lishka. They buried it. And then they made a new Mizbeach with new stones that were Tohor. Tzvonis Maravis Bo Yardin Lebeis Hatfila. The northwestern chamber, that was really also the smaller of the Beis HaMoiked, and that was also used for Tvila. Those Kohanim that might have seen Keri would be able to then go to the mikveh through there, and that was also through the Beis HaMoiked. Al Kopani, the Gemara asks a stira, because in the Mishnah in Tamid, it states by the Lishkas Hatloim, it was located in the northwestern corner of the Beis HaMoiked. And in this Mishnah in Midos, it states otherwise. It says that the Beis Hatloim was located in the southwestern corner. So the Gemara will explain a yishuv, a reconciliation for this question. Be'ez Hashem, we'll see this next time.